They say not everyone is chosen to shine, Amelia. Some of us are meant to hold the ladder so others can climb. My mother told me that over coffee years ago, her words warm but edged, as if they were a gift, not a limitation. I was 19, new to the world in a stiff, proud uniform, heart set on becoming a name they would remember. I don't think she meant to break anything inside me, but that phrase, gentle as a blanket, final as a lock, became the quiet background music to my life. Every family visit, it was there. Every holiday, in the gentle ways they looked past me to my sister, the golden one, the one they boasted about on Facebook, posting every promotion like a coronation. When I flew back from hostile territory, my boots caked with dust and stories I couldn't share, the house was silent, no one waiting at arrivals. "You're always busy," my father said, as if I'd missed a lunch date and not spent 7 months dancing inside shadows most people never see. On Thanksgiving, my usual chair went to the neighbor's law school-accepted son. They called it a big deal. I ate standing by the kitchen sink, my medals forgotten in a box somewhere with the other things that never made it on display. Somewhere between the different rooms and silent glances, I decided I was done chasing after applause that never reached me. What was the point in surviving firefights if I couldn't survive the frost in my own living room? Then last month, everything shifted. I was sitting in the back at a command briefing, just there to observe, fully invisible in ranks and titles that never seemed to fit. The room hummed with the important people's names, none of them mine. Then the door opened, and in walked a commander. He scanned the faces, then stopped, right on me. He squared his shoulders, stood straighter, and with every eye now following his gaze, said, "Ma'am, you're the general." The air went thin. The silence wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. That moment burst open years of being unseen, sharp, not sweet. Pride, so long denied, crackled through me. For the first time, I didn't shrink or apologize for taking up room. My name is Amelia Harper, and I have walked men into gunfire, held the hands of bleeding friends in desert sand, and made decisions that refused to let me sleep. But the hardest thing I have ever done is survive being invisible, in my own family. Before I let you into this story, I need to know you're here. Leave a listening in the comments, or tell me where you're watching from. Sometimes knowing someone's out there makes it possible to speak what's never been spoken. And if you see any of yourself in this story, think about subscribing. It helps truth find the ones who need it. Thank you. And now, here's what truly happened. My name again is Amelia Harper, eldest daughter in a family 3 generations deep in uniform, tradition, and expectation. We swallowed Army protocol before we knew how to spell it. At Fort Mason, Texas, military wasn't just a profession, it was our family's religion. My father, Frank Harper, finished his service as a lieutenant colonel. My mother, Mildred, once worked as a field medic, wearing her silence as decorum no amount of medals could match. My brother Tom's now a captain. My baby sister, Olivia, is about to be pinned as a major. And me, well, I'm the one who vanished from their stories. To them, I was always the one who dropped out, the one who failed West Point by walking away after year 1. I couldn't handle it, they'd whisper at the table. What they never guessed is that I hadn't left at all. I'd been drafted, handpicked for an operation so shadowed it didn't officially exist. No marching bands, no graduation, no photograph on the wall, just an endless collection of tickets to places you only see in redacted documents. For these 20 years, I haven't been gone. I've just been missing from their picture, watching their lives unfold as if I were a ghost on the other side of the screen. I sent flowers for my mother's birthday, cards at holidays, all stamped from safe false return addresses. I saw Olivia become their favorite headline. I watched Tom marry, everyone smiling in photos. I was airbrushed out so the frame would be balanced. They'd always said I quit because I wasn't tough enough. What they didn't know, what no one could know, was that while they were celebrating on parade grounds and trading stories at the kitchen table, I was crawling through ruins in Beirut or whispering orders in bunkers below the ground in Tripoli. Once, I spent 4 days hiding behind false walls in a hostage compound, composing a plan that brought 30 strangers home alive. The mission they called Candlelight still haunts me. I lost 3 of my best, and a piece of myself I've never found again. But I came back after each ordeal. I just never came home, not really. Stories like mine aren't told around the Harper table, not unless they come with applause, medals, or press coverage. All I had were invisible wounds. Then, just as the leaves began to turn, I received a call. My mother's voice was as brisk as ever, not quite cold, but stripped of welcome. "Olivia's being promoted. You'll come, but wear something simple. Don't draw attention, and please don't interrupt her speech." There was no, "How are you?" No hint that my presence meant anything except as another background figure. I told her I would be there, not out of hope for a grand welcome or parade, but to see if, just once, someone in that old beige house could look at me and see the real person beyond the stories told in shadows. I stood in front of my closet that same night, staring at my old, untouched uniform, a symbol pressed and sealed, waiting as if for an honor never given. I packed it alongside a plain blouse and slacks. My reflection in the mirror was a stranger I almost recognized, sharper, lined by too many dawns in forgotten places, but steady. No applause, no regrets. I found myself whispering, "Almost time," though even then, I didn't know if I meant time to forgive them, or at last speak my own truth. The drive to Fort Mason was long, arriving precisely when expected. No one at the gate, no embrace by the porch, just the familiar, colorless house with the chipped paint and ever-present flag. Inside, I found my mother setting up name cards, arranging order but not welcome. She looked up, barely. "Go change. You're sitting with Olivia, but stay quiet during her ceremony, all right?" Those were her first words after my drive. Not a hug, not a smile, just instructions. My father greeted me like a commanding officer saying farewell, an efficient pat on the back, a nod, and little more, already searching past my shoulder for someone more significant to his day. Olivia swept in with all the poise of a homecoming queen in medals and bars, every inch pressed and perfect. She held the room's attention easily, each grin and compliment leading seamlessly into her own spotlight. When she finally gestured toward me, it was almost an afterthought. "This is Amelia. She did a little time in the military, too, then moved into admin work, I think." A ripple of polite laughter followed, soft but sharp if you knew how to hear it. I caught my cousin's whisper, "So what is it now? VA office? That's decent, right?" I smiled, tight-lipped. Some truths are best kept protected by silence. The walls in that house were their own battlefield, a gallery of every Harper and dress blues, diploma frames, staged ceremony portraits. None featured my grown face. The last one with me was from my West Point days, cropped out later to fit the picture. Sometime during the bustle, a little niece, face messy with cake, tugged at my sleeve. "Did you ever shoot a real gun?" she asked, eyes wide as wishes. I knelt beside her, softening my voice to her level. "Once, I wrote a plan that brought 30 soldiers home to their mothers. That's better than any shot I ever fired." She blinked, then sprinted off to conquer a plastic tank, her world still safe. Dinner before the ceremony was a small affair, just the family and a handful of favored officers. Olivia was radiant, orchestrating every moment with a practiced grace. Someone praised her for her composure, and she replied with a practiced smile, "I worked hard on my speech. I want everyone to know you don't always have to walk away to realize you made a mistake." The message stung, as intended. Everyone knew who she was talking about, but no one dared say it out loud. Later, while the house buzzed with plans and old war stories, I slipped onto the front porch alone. In the night, distant strains of a marching band drifted through the darkness. I sat on the steps, watching the breeze catch old autumn leaves. Tomorrow, I'd be the silent shadow, letting Olivia have her moment. But some truths demand to be heard. I felt them gathering like a storm, waiting for their own release. The promotion hall at Fort Mason had the solemn hush of a chapel. Rows and rows of folding chairs lined up like soldiers, every seat assigned by strict protocol, except for a handful in the back, marked "Family Unassigned." That was where I sat, wedged between a nervous fiancé and an aunt who'd gone heavy on the perfume. Around me, conversation buzzed in murmurs, a clinking of medals and expectation. Up front, Olivia took her place beneath the flag's fold, her boots shining, her every gesture practiced from years of watching and wanting this exact spotlight. She spoke of loyalty, of sacrifice, of the virtue in staying the course. Most pointedly, she talked about the weight of honoring the uniform by never abandoning it. She never used my name, but each word landed like a stone, meant not for the generals or the dignitaries, but for the family ghost sitting 3 rows from the door. When she finally mentioned my sister Amelia in attendance, a murmur swept the row ahead. 2 officers shared a glance. "She looks familiar. Isn't that—" The words faded before they reached me. I kept my eyes fixed ahead, posture perfect, refusing to signal hurt or pride. No one noticed the general moving through the room until he was nearly upon me. General Simmons, calm and deliberate, surveyed the crowd and then honed in on where I sat. He stopped just beside my chair, heels together, and delivered a crisp salute. "Ma'am," he said, loud enough for the entire room. "General Harper, it's good to see you back." The silence was electric. Across the stage, Olivia's notes rustled. Her voice faltered, the perfect mask slipping for a split second. I stood to return his salute, not for applause, but to meet his respect honestly. In that moment, I was not the lost sibling or the rumored dropout. I was named and known. My mother's water glass shattered on the tile. My father half stood, then dropped heavily back into his chair. Whispers circled all around us. "Is that her? The commander from Shadow Lion?" The gravity of the room shifted. Olivia tried to reclaim her speech, but the ground had quietly moved beneath her. Heads turned, eyes narrowed in curiosity or silent awe. The ceremony ended in uneven applause, thick with discomfort. As the crowd filed out, Olivia found me near the exit, her smile brittle. "You could have said something," she hissed. I looked at her, not with anger, but with hard-won patience. "If your truth needs mine to shrink for you to stand tall, then you never stood at all." She blinked, wounded but proud, fighting the urge to reply. I walked away, boots echoing in a space suddenly stripped of its old invisible rules. For the first time I left that room not buried by their doubts, but followed by the uneasy hum of questions that might never be answered. I didn't go back to the family house after that. Instead, I drove across the base to the bland, pale guest quarters they'd assigned me, a room meant for strangers, with disposable sheets and a lamp that hummed in the quiet. I dropped my keys, kicked off my shoes, and saw it, a manila envelope on the desk, blank as a threat unspoken. Inside it was a printout of an email dated 2 years prior. No sender listed, just a forwarded chain routed through secure servers. The subject, "Unauthorized Operation Civilian Casualties," made my skin crawl. The message outlined supposed allegations against A. Harper, painting my command as reckless, even criminal. Words I remembered, word for word, from a classified report only 3 people had ever read: me, the lead analyst, and a junior officer, Olivia. Suddenly, scattered moments aligned, an unexpected flagging of my credentials during that period, a mysterious investigation that was dropped quietly after a few days. Was it all coincidence, or was it carefully spun in the dark, with someone pulling strings that left smoke where there had never been fire? The dates matched Olivia's time on base. She'd once mentioned leaving her laptop unattended in a secure room. Details that had seemed harmless now echoed with new, dangerous possibility. I took that envelope with me, weighted by more than paper. I found Olivia still in her dress blues at the officers' lounge, surrounded by admirers. I waited for the crowd to thin, then caught her outside as she stepped into the shadows to take a phone call. I held the scan open before her, steady. "Did you send this?" I asked, my voice a flat, tired blade. She froze for a long, brittle moment, eyes wide, then narrowing. "Yes," she whispered. I nodded. "Why?" Her gaze dropped as if the floor had opened beneath her. "Because you weren't supposed to win," she said, her voice scraping raw. "You left. You gave up. I needed them to see me for once. Even when you weren't here, they kept talking about you." I watched her. In that moment, not the soldier or the rising star, but a younger sister haunted by old shadows, need, jealousy, and loneliness all tangled together. Silence hung between us like smoke. I saw in Olivia not just a rival or a betrayer, but a reflection of the small, desperate child who'd once trailed after me in backyards and crowded base halls, hungry for a place at the table. There was hurt there that even medals couldn't mask. Finally, I broke the hush, quiet and solemn. "You do understand," I said, "that sharing classified information is a crime." Her eyes widened for a heartbeat, then steadied with the kind of resignation I recognized from the battlefield, a soldier who realizes the battle's lost but stands up anyway. She said nothing more. I let that be our ending, turned, and walked back into the chill of night, fingers trembling, not from rage, but the ache of understanding. Some of the deepest wounds are carved by the hands that once held yours. Sleep came in restless bursts, flashes of old sirens and foreign streetlights. Then, before dawn, an alarm shattered the quiet, a siren meant to rip you from safety. My phone glowed emergency protocol, all high-clearance officers to the coordination center. No time for questions, only action. In minutes, my uniform was on and I was out the door, moving down hallways already humming with urgent purpose. Base staff hustled between monitors and desks, tension thick in the air. At the entrance, a serious sergeant handed me a folder, a classified breach tied to Operation Shadow Lion, my old mission in Syria, had surfaced on the dark web just hours before. The digital signature traced back to an internal device, one that had once been assigned to me. It was as if the past had reached up to drag me under. Before long, I found myself in a frosty briefing room, across from General Simmons and two faces from military intelligence. The air vibrated with suspicion, though no one used the word. They wanted every piece of my digital history. I didn't hesitate. I gave them all my access, my records, my messages. Yet a chill threaded through me, the memory of the email, the envelope that had landed on my desk just yesterday. Suddenly, with the full weight of the intelligence division behind me, I began to dig, tracing links, decrypting paths, following digital footprints on the servers. I found what I feared. The anonymous breach used an old backup route that accidentally attached a secret file, confidential intelligence from Operation Shadow Lion. The email trail, the same one Olivia had accessed days before, sprang to life. Her credentials, logged at a terminal she'd left unlocked, now tied her actions to the breach. What first seemed a betrayal twisted into something colder, a series of accidents, emotional mistakes, and long-buried resentment igniting a powder keg. Thunder rumbled inside my head, but a knock at my door interrupted the spiral. My father, looking smaller than he ever had in uniform, no longer the impenetrable colonel, but simply Frank, my dad, stood at the threshold. No greeting, no accusations, just a question. "Is it true? Did you send the leak?" His eyes didn't burn with anger, but with pain and, for the first time, fear. Fear that the foundations of everything he'd ever believed in were on the edge of collapse. I met his gaze with the calm certainty built on years of impossible judgment. "You don't have to believe me," I told him, voice low but clear. "But I will prove the truth. Not for me. For the people who still live by code and trust the system, even when it forgets them." He nodded once, old soldier to old soldier, and faded back into the corridor, leaving the door ajar. By morning, I'd filed a request to take lead on the internal investigation. It wasn't standard, but my clearance, my motive, and my knowledge made me the logical choice. General Simmons agreed. He stood, offered his hand, and gave me the kind of nod reserved for equals, not subordinates. "General Harper, the floor is yours." The gravity of it shook me, but I moved forward. No choice but to wade in or be swept away by all I'd survived so far. Soon I sat at the head of a table facing not just officials, but my own family assigned as the task force, each with a role lifted directly from our old family mythology. My father would manage the campaign intelligence, Olivia would sweep system vulnerabilities, my mother, with all her quiet skills in forensics, would assist with hardware and trace evidence. It was as if command structure and blood ties had crossed, neither fully trusting nor entirely separate. The first meeting bristled with invisible walls. My father delivered his brief in few words, never meeting my eyes. Olivia's report was efficient and colorless. Her voice gave away nothing. My mother's gaze flickered between us, as if trying to reconcile the people before her with long-ago children she used to know. I felt none of the warmth families are supposed to share. But that wasn't the point. My task was to find the truth, not to feel comfortable. Breakthrough came not with a bang, but with a blinking system alert. While running a deep scan on server logs, our security AI flagged a dormant Trojan horse, a piece of digital rot buried since 2017, its code, subtle, embedded, never triggered, until now. That date, 2017, unlocked memories of an old dispute with a strategist named Derek McKnight. He had wanted a ruthless sweep through a civilian sector. I'd refused, standing for caution and care. My resistance made me his target, a symbol of the very weakness he condemned. Further digging found that Derek, in his time, held special override access. It was horrifyingly possible that he'd planted malware, waiting, patient as a landmine, until Olivia stumbled onto it by mistake. It explained so much: the accidental exposure, the breach, the investigation cast over my name. My mother, unexpectedly, placed a folder in my hands. "You left this behind," she murmured. "I thought you were hiding. Now I realize you were simply trying to survive." Her voice was less an apology than a signal that she finally saw me. Recognition. Not pride, not sorrow, just understanding, quiet and long overdue. That same night, new logs showed a login attempt from a motel just outside base, a 3-day cash booking made under the name Derek McKnight. He had returned, hiding behind the confusion we'd all unwittingly created. At that point, I knew. This wasn't only about family wounds or personal rivalries. Someone had been waiting in our blind spots, eager to use our rifts for his own end. And now, finally, we were closing in. When the operation went down at the old, abandoned comms bunker outside base, the air tingled with the kind of nervous energy you only feel just before a storm. Our team moved with practiced precision, sealing off exits and advancing with silent purpose. Derek McKnight, the ghost from my past, was waiting at a battered terminal mid-upload of confidential files to an encrypted server. He barely glanced up as we entered. He didn't fight, didn't argue. He simply looked at me and, with the ghost of a challenging smirk, muttered, "Took you long enough, Harper." Interrogation was swift, methodical. Derek laid out everything. His plan to end my career publicly, not just because I'd blocked his reckless strategy years earlier, but because watching my family's internal fractures from afar had shown him a way in. "All I had to do was let the cracks widen. The rest took care of itself," he said. He knew Olivia would stumble, knew someone would try to erase old rivalries using shadows, not realizing her every action would set off a chain reaction larger than she ever intended. His bitterness was sharp, but not heated, just a residue of old grudges that had finally curdled into obsession. When Olivia read his signed confession, she sat unmoving, eyes locked on the paper as if it might decide to rewrite itself. After a long silence, she finally spoke, not looking at me, but as if speaking to a childhood memory. "I didn't know what I did would lead to this," she whispered, voice scraping raw. My arms folded almost protectively. "Sometimes, Olivia, when we start a fire out of jealousy, we forget there are people sleeping in that field." Her composure wavered, but she managed to hold it together. That was Olivia, a mixture of pride and shame armored against the world. She didn't apologize, but she didn't deny anything either. The fallout came in waves. Olivia submitted an addendum to the task force's final report, admitting she'd triggered the email that started everything. She accepted a formal reprimand and lost eligibility for further promotion for several years. Heavy consequences, but short of criminal charges. She signed it willingly, offering no excuse. The family sat together in the conference room, and for the first time, the air seemed clear of accusation, heavy only with the honesty we'd all avoided for years. My father stood at the end of the table, cleared his throat, and for the first time admitted, "I owe you, all of you, especially you, Amelia, an apology. I was blinded by medals and pride. I should have seen you, not just what you wore or the titles you held." His voice, gruff and thick with remorse, caught everyone by surprise. No one cried, though I saw a glisten in Olivia's eyes. For the briefest second, the years of rivalry softened into hard-earned peace. The morning of the Regional Strategy Summit dawned foggy and cold, mist rolling over base like the past refusing to fully lift. I stood backstage beneath humming projectors, waiting to present to 60 assembled officers, commanders, analysts, dignitaries. Olivia was there, now an officer in training, her name printed second row on the guest list. I'd invited her myself. My note was simple: "It's time to learn what you thought I didn't know." As the lights dimmed, I took the stage. No escort, nothing but the truth and years of silence behind me. With steady resolve, I told them, "Some missions never get a name. Some leaders never appear in headlines. Our hardest battles don't always leave scars where others can see." Heads nodded, some with recognition, some with overdue respect. Even those who'd once only believed Olivia's curated stories watched in a new light. Midway through, I revealed the hardest secret, that during Operation Shadow Lion, faced with the order to sweep a hostile compound, I signed an override, choosing to hold back fire because there were children inside. That choice nearly cost my whole career. Would I do it again? Without hesitation. Leadership, I explained, is not always about being right. It's sometimes about carrying the weight of mercy. The room went silent, absorbing every word. To close, I handed the microphone to Olivia. Her voice was careful, honest, her gaze steady. "For years," she said, "I thought standing tallest meant being seen. Today, I learned that strength is also knowing who you can learn from and having the courage to admit it." The room erupted in applause, this time not for me, but for the kind of honesty that binds wounds tighter than a bandage. And as everyone stood, my mother sat quietly in the back, nodding, for the first time not in silent judgment, but in understanding. I felt seen at last, not for my medals or my mistakes, but for who I truly was.